Hello there, my name is Phil Lee from Edward Lee's Imports, and this is Fluffy, the sales manager. I'm telling a story about my love affair with my Datsun Fairlady Z. The story goes back to October 1971. I was born on Oxford Street, and Mum and Dad brought me home in an orange one of these. They put me in the parcel tray in the back here. Apparently Dad had to stop the car in a hurry, and I slid forward through the two seats and ended up on the floor as a newborn child. So that was my first introduction to the Datsun 240Z. In the late 60s, my dear old dad was a Datsun dealer. He had a little new car franchise shop. Fast forward to me, I'd turned 19 and I'd been saving up all my bickies for a car. My dad said, I'll go your halvesies with your first car. So as it happened, some old customers of Dad walked in the shop and they had a 918 orange Datsun 240Z that they were trading in, and they said, Edward, we bought this car off you 20 years ago and we want to trade it in. And it was the perfect car for me, except it had a Webasto vinyl sunroof and it was an automatic. So we changed it over to a manual and I started driving it. I was very excited. As I was driving it, my dad said to me one day, is it a 4-speed or a 5-speed? I said, I don't know, I think it's a 4-speed. Lo and behold, I took it for a drive the next day and bang, had an extra gear on there, so that was pretty exciting. And then fast forward to this car, I'd taken over the family business and my dad had started importing cars from Japan in the early 90s, and I'd been running the business for some time, and this was my dream car. This is a stroker Fairlady Z, and it's got all the period correct go fast bits from triple carbies. It's got the diesel crank. It's been bored out to a 3.1, tuned light and flywheel, limited slip diff. It's got the right Watanabe rims on it. Yeah, Nobu found this for me in Japan. I've been driving it for a long time, and then foolishly somebody came into the shop to look at my Porsche for sale, and he saw this, a young man from Brisbane, and he offered me a silly price for it, so I traded this on an R34 GTR that he had, and this car disappeared from my life and I regretted selling it. Fast forward another 3 years, after regretting selling this car, I saw it pop up on an ad in Gumtree. It was in Brisbane still, so I jumped on the first plane I could get my butt into with a bag of cash. It was a different person that owned it. So the original guy that I sold it to another young guy, and I bought it back from him in Brisbane and jumped in it and drove it home. And that was about 7 years ago now. It's the second time I've owned this car. Done several track days in it, a couple of quick lap times around Wakefield Park, even a couple of dices with the Ferrari Club members. They don't like me very much anymore because this car was pretty quick against some of the older Ferraris. I don't think I'm going to change this car. I've got it to the point where I've done a few mods on it and I've made some changes to it to make it exactly how I like it. When I originally got this car, it had a Recaro seat in the driver's side and the original seat. I didn't like that, so I found a set of original seats and they were uncomfortable. So then I got a set of Sparco race seats, and they were okay for the track, but they're not very adjustable. So those seats went. Finally we settled on this set of beautiful early series Recaros, and we've retrimmed them really nicely, tastefully in leather with these beautiful little kind of 1970s speed holes. So they're kind of cool. The other thing that happened with this car, when I originally sold it, it had 15-inch Watanabes on it, which were really nice. When I found the car in Brisbane, it had these massive SSR Longchamps on it that stuck out even way beyond the fender flares. They looked a bit silly, they were over the top. I rang my mate up that was importing Watanabe rims and I said, I want to go back to the original Watanabes, and he said, Phil, do you want 15s or 16s? And I said, well, what do you think? He said, well, the 16s will look better, it'll look fatter with the 16s. So I said, rightio, get me some 16s. So we put them on and it looked $1 million, but the steering had just gone another 10 or 15% heavier. I rang my mate Stuart Wilkins at Stuart Wilkins Racing. I said, how do we solve this problem? I don't like the steering, it's too heavy for me. He said, no worries, Phil, I've got the perfect solution. We've worked out power steering rack that will bolt beautifully into this car. It was off some French car, I can't remember, a Citroen or a Renault or something like that. So Stuart Wilkins put power steering in this car that's just beautifully weighted, suits the car nicely. When I first owned the car, I was doing quite a few track days and it had really hard suspension, which was ideal for doing the track days. But what happens is you end up using this car 90% of the time on normal street driving, and every little ripple in the road was causing me a back spasm. It was a bit unpleasant. My wife wouldn't get in the car. car. Even Fluffy said no. So we asked Stuart Wilkins to put in a little bit more streetable, softer ride. So it's got brand new, I think they're yellow conies, and the ride has just transformed to a really comfortable ride over bumpy roads, and on the streets it's now very comfortable, and it's still got really nice handling. So that's about it. I'm Phil Lee, and that's my story.